Hi, I'm Georgeanna DeCarlo. I saw a UFO a few years ago. It was like a red pulsing light in the sky. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, that's an airplane. And I looked away. And then I thought, that's not an airplane, it's not moving. And I looked back up at it, and another light had come down to it, like swung close to it, and then zipped away from it. And I was like, oh, that's a couple helicopters. And looked away again. And then I stopped, and I thought, that's not a plane or a helicopter. And why did I even think that? So I looked at them, and sure enough, the one was not going anywhere. It was completely stationary in the sky, and it was like a red light, and then it would switch to blue, and the other one would continue to like come close to it and then go away. And I thought, I've seen that before. I used to see that all the time when I was a little kid, and I grew up here in the hills of northwestern Pennsylvania when I was little. My family and a family in the neighborhood would go up on top of a hill like every night, and we would see lights in the sky just like that, only there was like dozens more of them. And this wasn't anything that I was afraid of. It was just more of a curiosity. And we even had several crafts come very close to our cars. One time, I was probably like 6 or 7, it was in the 70s, and my dad was driving, and we were heading home, so we were a few miles from the house, and a big, long ship came right above our car, and was just hovering above the car, and my dad pulled over by a field, and it went from above our vehicle to over in the field, and we all got out and looked at it. It was like a big, long cylinder, like a silver cylinder, and it just sat there for a little while, and then it moved off. And one time, I remember my parents coming back, and they came in the house really excited, and they said that a small ship had come right in front of their car, just like lowered itself right in front of their car as they were driving down the road. Again, this was just a couple miles from our house. And they could actually see inside the craft. They could see lights in there. It was like a clear glass type panel up front. And so anyways, to me it was just a curiosity. I spent all my time playing outside, and I love being outside. And when I rode the school bus, the kids on the school bus too, we would all talk about what we were seeing, and it just didn't seem like it was like any of us were crazy or there was any kind of stigma involved with it. But then there were a few kids on the bus that started to make fun of us, and we just kind of quit talking about it. But there was a lot of people that saw a lot of things happening in our area. So when I saw that craft that night just a couple years ago, I thought, well, I'm going to share these pictures and the video and ask people, why did we quit seeing these? And do you guys still see them? And does anybody remember what was going on in the 70s when we saw them all the time? And so I did have one woman respond to me, and she said she remembered that, and she lived probably 20 miles away from our house. But she and the people in their neighborhood did the same thing like we did. They went and watched these lights in the sky, and she said one time her and her husband were driving home, and this was a very strange sounding craft. She said it was like a triangular looking thing that was kind of rounded on the bottom, but like a cylinder that came to a point at the top of it. And again, they could see like right inside of it. And once my mom also saw a little craft come right in front of her, and she could actually see inside of it to like a little gray being. And so this had all just stopped. So I was thinking, why are we just not seeing it? And why was my first thought when I saw that to think something that was like so illogical? You know, I mean, obviously that was not an airplane. It was at the height in the sky where an airplane would fly. So I really started looking into it after that. And right about that time in my life, I was having an experience with my family, and there were some problems that I was really upset about and scared about. And to make a long story short, I really had to face my fears, and I realized that I had a very strong connection to unconditional love, and that with love I could overcome anything, and that I didn't want to use any type of force that would be hurtful or violent. And I think that that was a very important lesson that was placed in my life at that time. I think that these things happen sometimes for just because bad things can happen, but it's also like a test for us to find out what we're made of. And that's what happened for me, because I realized that I had a strength inside myself, and it made me think back to how I felt as a child and the things that I enjoyed and how much nature meant to me, how close I felt when I was in the woods. And so it started bringing all of that back into my life. And shortly after that, I started noticing orbs in my photos. And my first thought then was, well, there must be a spot on my camera, or lens flare, you know, whatever. It just was so odd, though, that I couldn't dismiss it. And then again, I thought, why did I think that? Why did I just so easily dismiss the idea that it was something unusual? So the more and more that I looked into that and started intentionally photographing orbs, the more that I learned. And a friend of mine recommended a Facebook group, and in that group someone posted about the Sasquatch message for humanity. And I read that, and it changed my life. I realized that these were part of the beings that were trying to communicate with me, that they were really part of my family, and that they'd always been there with me. It's amazing, the memories that come back to you. But I think that the most important thing was that I stood in love, because we've been so trained to react. And my initial reaction wouldn't have been to like be violent towards an alien or a Sasquatch or anything like that, but it probably would have just been to turn away and say, get away from me. And so I think that that's why they've entered my life in a way that I could consider this and look at it, because I have a very logical, skeptical mind. But reading the message really inspired me, because it has information about how to meet them yourself. And I started singing outside in the mornings, just feeling so happy to just have this reconnection with nature back in my life so strong. And one morning while I was singing, I saw an orange glow in the hillside, and it went straight up in the air and came right to me, and it was like a small oblong roundish craft, and it went right over my head. And I had my camera because I was going to take some pictures of orbs, and I could have taken a picture of it, but I remember thinking, I'm just so happy that I don't care if I have a picture of this. I don't want this. I don't need it. I was just felt so much joy because they were making themselves visible to me like that. And I think that is why it's so important for us to share our messages in these videos, because of people like Dawauta Lomakatsi, who shared the Sasquatch message for humanity. Kawoni and Kelly Lapsaritis, who have their books and their groups. It's like by hearing their stories and seeing that research, we can come to realize that what's happening to us is we're not alone. Okay, if I wouldn't have had that information, I might have just felt like I was just a little crazy or doubted my sanity. And I'm not saying that I eventually wouldn't have come around, like they have, being, so brave as to talk about these things. But I think that's why it was so important for me to be a part of this project, is Michael Harrell is bringing this information forward. So I thank everyone, and I thank you, Michael, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.